Every year, Oklahoma gardeners plant hundreds and hundreds of radish seeds, and the radishes come up, and for the first week or two, radishes taste really good, and then radishes begin to get a little bigger, and the weather gets a little hotter, and they get a little hotter too, and before you know it, a lot of radishes are going to waste. So what I'm looking at today is a way that you can vary the radishes that you eat from always cold in a salad, and that you can use up some of the bigger ones that are maybe getting a little bit too spicy. So this is going to be braised radishes with raspberry vinegar. Something a little different. You got to have an open mind. What we have here are radishes that are a little bit larger than a lot of them that come out of the garden because we pull them when they're small. What you notice is that the leaves are very wilted because these leaves are more than a day old. Now generally when I harvest them, what I like to do is cut off the tops because they will wilt so quickly, and then cut off the bottoms as well. Put them in a sink of cold water and wash them well. You can, if you've got two of them, you can rub them together like this, and that will remove a lot of the dirt and the soil from them. May take a couple of rinses of water. This year, because we have a water shortage in so many areas, I would really encourage you to do a good share of that outside in the garden in a container that you can retain that water, and then add that water back to your garden so it's not wasted. There's no point in pulling the drain. This is just water with dirt in it by the time you finish it. It's perfect for use in the garden or on other plants. Once you get them cleaned up like this, now if these were young, these tops you would save, because you could sprinkle them in a salad, but they need to be used the day you harvested or shortly after you harvested, and be very small. Then they add a nice pepper to a green salad, a peppery taste, and they're very, very good that way. Once you get them all cleaned up, put them in a container with a paper towel on the bottom and a nice snug lid, and put them in the refrigerator, and you'll be surprised how long they will keep in there. I've had them keep up to 2 weeks just by doing that, and that's a lot of, since all of mine tend to come pretty close to the same time, that allows us to spread out the season quite a bit and have radishes stretched out. Let's look at another problem with radishes. We often get those that split. And once that split happens, a lot of dirt and the bacteria and microorganisms that come in with dirt go down in that crack as well. And depending on how deep it is, you may actually need to throw the radish away. Sometimes they're split almost to the center. This one's not that bad. So what I probably would do with this one is to cut away plenty of space to make sure that I don't get any of that bacteria in there. You really cannot wash it out. The cracks and the crevices are just in such a shape that that radish, that part of the radish is one that you need to discard in order to assume that all your radishes are clean. All right, let's get started on what we're doing today. What I've got here is a pound of radishes that I'm going to use, and in order to get started I've got a skillet here, and I'm going to add to it half a cup of water just to get everything going, and then I've got 2½ tablespoons of sugar, and I'm just going to bring all these things up to a boil. Now the delightful thing on this one is the 1/3 cup of raspberry vinegar, a beautiful color as you can see. If you don't have raspberry vinegar, which can be a little bit hard to find in some areas if you don't make your own, then red wine vinegar will work as well. You'll have to change the name of your recipe when you serve it though. And then I added a ½ teaspoon of salt, and I've got a tablespoon of unsalted butter. Now if you don't have unsalted butter, if you're using salted butter or if you're using margarine, don't add the salt because that will add some of the salt to it, and then if folks need a little more salt later on, they can add it at the table. If you're on a sodium restricted diet, you could also leave the salt out at this time and not have hardly any salt at all in the recipe when you're done. Just bringing this up to a boil. The margarine or the butter is actually going to help give it a little bit of a shine so that it will have a nicer appearance later on. Adds a little bit of a fat to it too, which helps you absorb fat-soluble nutrients, which can also be important. Now I've got about a pound of radishes. Notice that they're pretty big. We want a pan, and you may need to test this out before you start because I want all the radishes in one layer as much as I can get them. It looks like we're going to come pretty close here. I think I can squeeze all of those in. Now since they're large and pretty much the same size, if you had some that were really large like this and some that were very small, I'd recommend that you add them in stages so the bigger ones have a chance to cook. But these are close enough, I think. We'll put a lid on that and let that simmer for about 10 minutes. After that 10-minute simmer, then you want to take the lid off. Notice how much color change we've had. Because this is a water-soluble pigment, the nice thing is that the vinegar is helping keep the color red instead of letting it turn bluish or purplish as it would if we just were cooking in water. Let these simmer for another 5 to 10 minutes until you can pierce them with a knife and they're tender. Now we've reduced this down. Now reducing simply means to concentrate it, and you can see how it looks like a glaze now. So I've turned off the burner, and we'll add the radishes back to this. See if I can keep them under control in this process. And I'm going to sprinkle about a half a teaspoon of black pepper over the top of that, and then we'll mix them together in the pan, and basically we're about done. If you're good at swirling, you can do that. But notice that the glaze is also shining up the radishes. It's giving them a little bit more color than they had before too. See if I can get a couple of these big ones spun around a bit. And that's all there is to this. Put these in a bowl. And then you're going to want to add a little bit of color to them. If you've got a little parsley, or I'm going to use some chives that I've snipped today. So if you've got a kitchen garden, this is an excellent way to add a little bit of color as well as a little bit of flavor to your radishes. They don't have to be that cold thing that you see thrown in or sliced on a salad, nor do they have to be the little red balls that you find on the crudité platter. Radishes can add a lot of excitement. You can roast them, you can steam them, you can do something like this. For Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.